All right, this next interview is with Samantha Gilmore. So Samantha is 23 and she graduated from the University of Central Florida. She's working as a nurse in Vero Beach, Florida. So hi Sam, thank you for letting me ask you some questions.
Hi Hannah.
All right, so we've already determined that you are within my customer segment, between 22 and 30 years old, and would find financial planning to be something that would be helpful to you. So this week we're trying to figure out kind of what causes you to make certain purchase decisions. What are you looking for when you make purchases? What makes you feel that they are not necessarily good decisions, things like that. So this will be pertaining to my financial planning business. As I explained to you, I plan to open a business that is financial planning for young professionals, and it was originally going to be focused on retirement planning, but now we've kind of made it more broad, and it focuses on every aspect of your financial situation. So planning for your future savings, your credit, paying off debt, as well as retirement. So you already have an idea of what that is. So my first question will be, what matters most to you when making a purchase? So in this case, it'll be for a service, but just in general, examples are price, quality, style, or is there more than one that is important to you?
I think price and quality are probably most important.
Okay, and why do you say that?
Because I want to get my money's worth.
Okay, so for a financial planning business, what would you be looking for in terms of quality? I understand the price, you're just looking for a good price, a reasonable price for the service, but what would you be looking for in quality that would make you feel as though you got your money's worth?
My bank account's going up and my money making money, I guess.
Okay. So you just want to see a return on investment for what you... Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And in terms of price, what would you be looking for there? What would you think is fair and would make you happy with your decision to pay for the service?
I don't know. I've never done this before, so I don't know. I guess I would have to trust somebody. That's why I would probably go with somebody that I knew and already trusted.
Okay. So other than that, this question doesn't necessarily pertain to my business, but my last interview kind of brought up an interesting idea that perhaps I could do something online or offer different services online. So how do you prefer to make your purchases? Do you prefer to buy online or in store? And do you prefer to use cash or credit or finance a purchase?
I like to shop, so I like to go and in-person purchase, and most often I use my credit card.
Okay. So you prefer...
My debit card.
Gotcha. So you prefer in-store shopping. For this specific business, so for financial planning, is that still the case? Would you prefer to sit down with someone, or would it be more convenient to have the service online whenever you needed it? It would still be customized to you somehow. I'd have to figure that out, but to be able to access it at home and work with it there.
I'd probably like to be able to work with it online, but still have someone that I can call and ask, have a conversation with and ask questions.
So the combined
Yeah,
media to be able to talk in person. Okay,
yeah.
that's a good idea. I really hadn't considered online options before this week of this class. So that's actually a really cool idea. I think the segment that I'm looking at with young professionals 22 to 30 would prefer that almost.
Yeah, we're all online, so yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. And you said you would use your debit card or credit card. Are you opposed to using cash, or is it
No,
just
I just
easier?
don't have it usually, and it's just to go get some. It costs you money to do that, and it costs time, and so the debit card and the credit card are just more convenient.
Okay. Um, so then, when you have made a purchase and you're thinking back on it, what are things that make you feel like it was the right purchase or that you made a good decision? So not necessarily just for this idea with financial planning, but for all purchases, what is the main thing for you?
For all purchases,
Mm-hmm.
how well something lived up to what it was supposed to do. Um, and like a car, its resale value, that kind of thing. Um,
So you want it to meet your expectations. That's
yeah, definitely.
okay. Um, and
I don't want my dress to fall apart in a day, so
right, that's been kind of the theme. You don't want it to break after you've
right.
purchased it. So what about specifically with this business as a financial planning business? What would make you feel like it was a good purchase and was the right decision?
Well, if I paid $100 to have somebody help me make money,
Mm-hmm.
then I would want to make at least double that.
So 50% or 100% return on investment is where you draw the line.
I think so, yeah,
Okay.
because I don't even know if I have enough money that would even be worth it. So
Right. Okay. What if my services made changes for you that weren't necessarily monetary value, like raised your credit score or something like that?
I don't know. I don't know if my credits. I don't know what my credit score is, so I don't know if I've never really paid attention. So I guess that would have some value, but I'd have to see that. Like, if somebody could tell me, oh, you're going to save $50 on your insurance because your credit score is, 2 points higher, then I guess, that's $50 that I save, so that has, some
Okay.
value.
So it's definitely about monetary value for you. You want to be
Yes.
able to measure it. Okay.
Yes.
So then I just want to ask what the opposite would be. So when you think back on general purchases, what makes you feel like they were a bad idea?
Oh, well, that something that you buy and it breaks right away, like a TV I recently had that had less than 2 years, and it broke,
Okay.
and no one will make it better or make it right. So that's yeah. So I guess it's the same answer that I got my money's worth. If it didn't live up to my expectations, and I
Okay.
don't know.
So how about specifically with the financial planning? What I guess you've kind of answered because you're saying if you didn't get the right return on investment, but do you have any other insight into what would make you feel as though it was not a good choice to come in? Maybe if you felt like you didn't click personally with me or any of my employees or something like that, or would it just be about the money involved.
I guess it would be if they were things that I could do myself
Mm-hmm.
and not pay somebody to do. You know, if I were just being taught how to do some of these things and it would save me money.
Mm-hmm.
And if that was a flat fee or something, then that would be, that would be okay. But if I was paying like a monthly fee or, an annual fee based on, how much, I don't know. I just feel like if it's something that I could have done myself, then
Right.
I wouldn't have felt very good about the investment or the spending the money.
Right. And I've heard that in other interviews too, that if it feels like it's something I could have found online or in a book or something that could have been done much easier, much cheaper, then that doesn't feel like it's valuable. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's really all the questions that I have. And I appreciate you giving me some insight. We're getting deeper into how this idea comes together. So that's been cool. But thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Hannah. It was good to talk to you. We have to get together next time you're home.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right, so I'm here with Kyle Samuelson. He's a friend of mine from Gainesville. Hi, Kyle. Thanks for letting me ask you a few questions.
You're welcome.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about my idea already and already identified Kyle as someone in my segment. So, Kyle, tell us how old you are and what you're currently doing for work.
I'm 23 years old, and I work for Disney.
Okay, and what do you do with Disney?
I'm in the engineering.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, we've already discussed what my business plan is to become a financial planner for young professionals. So you fall into that segment as a 23-year-old, and also you just recently started your job. You graduated from UF, so the segment is kind of young professionals with new income that maybe haven't spent a lot of time focusing on their finances at this point in their life, but are now at the point where they might need to. So this week we are looking into kind of why or how people make decisions to purchase a product or a service. So that's going to be the theme of my questions. So I guess my first question will be, when you're making a decision as a buyer, what's most important to you when deciding on a product or service? Would you say, so some of the examples are quality, price, style. So in this case, style could be, is it more important to you that you are able to sit down with someone and discuss your options and be able to ask questions, or is just some other resource enough for you? So what do you look for when you spend money on a product or service?
Well, I think what I look for is just to have good value for my for the dollars I spend. So
Okay.
I think the return I get on what I'm buying is really important. That way I don't have, what is it? Buyer's remorse, I think it's called.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have that. I like to try to when like my finances. So we're talking about what I pay to have a financial advisor.
Yeah, so in this case, it's purchasing my service as a financial planner. So it sounds like quality is one of the things that you look for so that you don't have buyer's remorse after you've purchased something. So you want to know that it's a good product or service.
Yeah, like what we were talking about before, when you were asking me if I'd do the interview was, I just recently got a big pay increase after my internship phase ran up, and what my budgets were during that time, I was able to coordinate myself by reading a couple books and asking friends what they do. But now I think, I don't know if I need to talk to like a tax preparer or someone like you, but I just want to make sure I don't mess anything up with the money I have, and that it's working as hard as it can be for me.
Okay.
So,
So would you say that,
if I guess I would say if you save me more money than you cost, of course I would purchase.
okay, so price isn't necessarily an issue, it's more the value of what you're getting. That makes sense to me. So that's good.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. So the next section is kind of how you prefer to make your actual transactions. So for my business, it's not as pertinent, but just for the sake of the full scope of what we're talking about, do you prefer to purchase things online or in store? Do you prefer to use cash or credit or finance a purchase? What's your typical buying behavior for your actual transactions?
I prefer to use my debit card, so
Okay.
I
And when
don't
you
like-
shop, do you shop online or you like to go in store and be in person?
I do shop online. I have Amazon Prime, so I shop a lot
A lot on Amazon.
there. And I have some apps that I use as well.
Okay. All right. So a lot online. So would that sway you in any way from purchasing my service, which would be an in-person meeting with me? Would it keep you from trying my service, or using a financial planner because you prefer to do things online and maybe you can use an online resource? Or is that a separate issue for you, since it's not really something that can be offered online?
I would, if I were paying money, I would definitely like to sit down with somebody in person, because I feel like I would be getting more value than purchasing online. Paying money for help with my finances is not like paying money to get undershirts from Amazon.com. So I would definitely I would feel better about paying to meet somebody in person.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I don't know if I would have an option to do it online. That's actually kind of an interesting idea. Maybe I could think about an online option as well, since the segment that I'm looking at is very internet oriented, and we're definitely the generation that's starting to purchase more online than in person. But so thank you. That's an interesting idea. So my next set of questions will be about kind of buyer's remorse, like you were talking about, but so the first one is, what matters most to you when you think back on the, quote, rightness of a purchase? So what do you think about after you've purchased something or used a service that makes you feel confident that it was the right choice, or just know that it was a good purchase when you think back on it? What type of feeling or thoughts are you looking for when you think back on a purchase?
Purchasing financial services, I would consider the services to be valuable if what was given to me is more than what I could have found on my own in a book and not paying a fee.
Okay. So you just want it to be a unique experience, I guess. Something
beyond my education.
Yeah, I like that.
something beyond my experience. I don't really have a whole lot of experience. I just have my same college checking account that I opened up at Wells Fargo on campus my freshman year
Yeah.
when they had you corralled in the bookstore. So, I don't even know if I'm even getting fees on that. I should probably look into that.
Okay.
But, so that's something I could do is see about avoiding fees. So if we talk about, oh, I see there's a monthly service fee on your checking account, I wouldn't see that as valuable. But if you bring up a concept that I've never heard of before, but that makes sense, and we talk about it, and I could find value in it and understand it, then that would be something that would be really rewarding.
Okay. I think that's the goal of the in-person part of the meeting, is to feel like you're getting something special that is of value, since it takes that human interaction to get. But okay, so one of my last questions will be, so kind of the opposite. What makes a purchase, what sort of things make you think that a purchase was a bad idea? So what are the bad feelings or thoughts after a purchase that might make you want to return it or wish that you had not paid for it?
It's broken.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
What about in terms of a service?
It doesn't fulfill the function intended.
Okay.
So I think that would be a big thing, is just having an expectation that's let down.
Okay. So in terms of financial services, if you didn't think that it was really having any return on investment, in a sense?
Yeah, something that I find valuable, and that would be, again, just to have new ideas brought to me that I would not have thought of or would not have felt were important when reading a book about personal finance.
Okay. Well, that insight is actually really helpful. I think it's good to hear what people will want out of your service. It helps make the plan easier. So thank you very much. I appreciate your opinion on all of this and answering some of my questions. It was really helpful.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Sure.
Okay, for this interview, I have Julie Donnelly. She lives back in my hometown, and she is currently working as a teaching assistant at the University of Central Florida while she finishes her degree. Julie, if you want to tell a little about yourself.
I am 27. I live in New Smyrna.
Okay.
And I just recently had a child, me and my husband, and just went back to work and school after she was born.
Okay. And what are you studying for?
My PhD in chemistry.
Okay. So for this interview, we've already kind of talked about, I've identified that you are part of my segment, my customer segment, which is between 22 and 30, recently starting a new job or a different new time in your life where you're making a different income than you were in the past and maybe haven't reconsidered your financial situation at this point. And we've already determined that you would be interested in financial planning. So just for the sake of the interview, I'll kind of explain what my business plan is. I plan to start a financial planning business that is geared toward young professionals. It was originally supposed to be mainly retirement planning, but after interviewing a lot of people and figuring out that that wasn't the best route to go, it's now more of a broad financial planning that includes general savings plans, building your credit, paying off debt, as well as retirement planning to kind of get the full scope. So this interview will be focused on how you make your purchase decisions. So my business is kind of unique because it's a service, so it's not necessarily something that's black or white on how my product or service is performing. But it's good to get opinions on what you would want out of the service and what would make you feel like you made the right choice by paying money for the service. So my first set of questions will be about what do you look for when you're making a purchase. So it doesn't have to be necessarily about my product or service. Just in general, what do you look for when you're spending money on something? What's important to you when you make a purchase?
Okay, well, when I am looking to purchase something, there's definitely been a shift since I had my baby. It used to be more just about my husband and I, and if we wanted it, and affordability was definitely a factor, whether we could afford it or not. Mm-hmm. But we didn't have the pressure of a child. Now we definitely make sure that all of our daughter's needs are met before we purchase anything that's not a necessity for us. If it's a need, obviously we look at price as well as quality, because we don't want to buy the same product several times. Okay. Because it broke or didn't work the way we wanted or didn't hold up. But definitely we look at price and can we afford it, because budget now has gotten even tighter with everything that the baby requires, and then our needs as well as some of our wants.
Okay, so in general, style or fashion or whatever isn't necessarily at the top of your priority list. It's more about quality and price.
Yes.
Okay. So next, and again, this doesn't necessarily relate to my business specifically, but with my last couple interviews, I've gotten the idea that maybe an online business would be an option for this. I could possibly offer resources online to where people could maybe do, one of my last interviews was saying maybe we could do a partially online, partially in-person type thing to better relate to my customer segment that uses the internet for everything. So my next question is, how do you prefer to make your purchases, online or in store, and why?
My initial thought is in the store. I prefer that just to be able to see and touch and hold the product. However, as time becomes more of an issue with a baby and school and work and a husband and travel time in between all of that, the internet has become much more valuable and an easier option. There's times when I can't go to a store, but I could get on the internet and order something or look at something or speak with somebody, through the internet or phone or Skype.
Okay. So do you think the half and half would be a good choice, or would you rather it be online completely just so that it was more convenient?
I think as long as there's flexibility in, the scheduling of the face-to-face, I think that the half and half would be a really good option, because I do value face-to-face and in stores and in person. It's just not always possible.
Yeah. Okay, and then do you use cash or credit or finance purchases more often? So I guess there's kind of two-part. Do you use cash or credit, and then also do you prefer to pay things in full or finance them? So if you could answer both of those.
Okay, I definitely almost for regular purchases that would be a cash or credit choice. I'm almost 100% credit. Sorry, I never have cash on me. It's very very rare.
Mm-hmm.
However, everything that I do put on credit, I pay off at the end of the month. I've never had a monthly balance
Mm-hmm.
on my credit card. I just do it for the simplicity of having to carry one card, not having to keep track of the bills, and it's also kind of a comfort because if I lose a credit card, I can cancel it. If I lose cash, it's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
On the finance side, I don't finance often, but there's obviously the purchases like a vehicle or house that I personally don't have the means to pay in full at that time.
Okay. So then the next section is about what do you. So the question that's listed is what matters most to you when you think back on the quote rightness of a purchase. So when you think back and think that a purchase was a good idea, what are you looking for? What are you looking for in a valuable purchase, I guess?
I think as long as I use or wear the the purchase, whether it's clothing or some kind of gadget,
Mm-hmm.
I think if I use it and it's working properly and it's not something that breaks after the first use, or I bought because I loved it at the time but it sat in my closet, I typically would consider it a good purchase. I'm pretty conscious when I'm out making purchases, so it's not often that I regret them.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple of times, with like gadgets that I just thought were super cool, and it wasn't really. I used it initially, and then it just kind of sat on the counter.
Okay, so what about specifically for a financial planning service? Like, what would you want to get out of it so that when you think back on it a month later, you think it was a good choice?
I think if I had a financial planner, if I was learning ways to save money or the best ways to purchase, because I know that there are certain items that you can get much better deals online if you go the right route,
Mm-hmm.
if um, you know the right places, because sometimes there's sites that have to charge more to make money off of whatever company it might be that the product is actually from. Um, I think that as long as I were learning and it was benefiting me financially,
Mm-hmm.
then I would be happy with the financial service, because that would be why I looked for a financial planner. It would be to help me in whatever deficit I was finding, whether it was saving or just making good purchases, quality purchases.
Okay. What would make you feel like it was a bad idea? So when you think back on it and you're like, I probably shouldn't have paid money for that, what would be the things that would make you feel that way? For in terms of a financial planner.
Sure. I think that if I looked for services for financial planning and they really just sat down with me and told me things that I already know or things that you could, Google, I don't know that I would think it was valuable or worth the money, because if I'm looking for financial help, it's because I've already done what I can and tried everything that I can with my resources and the people that I know, and I would be looking for help from an expert outside of what I could do on my own. So if I found that they were just telling me things that you could, like I said, Google or ask a friend for, then I would be disappointed in the service.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard in a couple different interviews that as long as it's something that I couldn't have figured out on my own or learned easily, I would feel like it's valuable. So that's pretty consistent. But all right, well, that's all I have for you. Thank you very much for letting me pick your brain and get some more insight into the segment that I'm looking at. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.